Hey guys, today we are going to talk about audiovisual media, what, why, and future. And when I say audiovisual, I'm talking about audio. So that includes things like podcasting and audiovisual, which includes more of the VCast. So, first of all, let's start with podcasting. I want you to think about when the last time was that you listened to one and what is it about? Basically, podcasting means that anyone with a computer can become a radio disc jockey, talk show host, or recording artist. The freedom of blogging is combined with digital audio technology in podcasting. Podcasting is a free service that allows users to pull audio files, typically MP3s, from a podcasting website. Now, of course, we know with things like Spotify, there's all kinds of different memberships we can get and pay for, but basically, most podcasts are free. Podcasting came from a combination of the words iPod and broadcasting. And we want to think about in our lecture why a business might use it. First of all, we need to talk about the rules and regulation. Basically, there's sort of this idea that anything goes. Right now, podcasting is free from government regulation. That means podcasters don't need to buy a license to broadcast their programming like radio stations do. And they can copyright or license their work, but they don't have to. And they don't have to conform to the FCC, that the Federal Communication Commission's broadcast decency regulations. That means anything goes from four-letter words to sexually explicit content. It's a good time to mention video podcasts. Basically, they combine the audio component with visual media. A good example of this is Good Mythical Morning. Basically, they're sitting there like a talk show, and uh, the audio component is important, but they also have a visual component to it as well. There's not a set name for this. They're called videocasts, vidcasts, vodcasts. But basically, it's an interesting way where businesses large and small can advertise either through product placement or through a well-placed advertorial. And many people now can create high-quality media, so it definitely gives a lot of businesses and organizations the ability to do that. The history of podcasting comes from MTV, music television, big in the 90s when I was growing up. And basically, former MTV video jockey Adam Curry and software developer Dave Weiner they came up with this idea, and Curry wrote a program called iPodder where it automatically downloaded internet radio broadcasts to his iPod. Curry now hosts the Daily Source Code, which is a very popular podcast on the internet. And this is where podcasting came from, that idea of iPod, right? Podcasting. So, how do you write for podcasts? This is from Live 365 blog, and basically it gives you some tips such as write your script, especially if you are going to be scripted. There's some debate on whether they should be scripted or not. If you have more of an interview type show, you can definitely come with your questions and maybe an intro and then go from there. If you're doing more of a narrative or a story, you'll want to have a more set script. You want to paint pictures with words. So think about the words that you are using and make them more vivid because people are only going to be listening to them. Keep it concise. Ranting and rambling might work for a little while, but basically, succinct and focused podcasts seem to be the most successful. Give yourself some flexibility. Again, people don't like things to be stiff or too rehearsed, and make it your own. Write it in your voice and let your personality shine through, whether it is for an organization or for entertainment. That's really important. Here's some other tips for scripting. You want to think about your word count. So if you are going to write it out, you need to calculate a word count that meets the desired running length before writing it. I have a word count calculator on the page where this video is available. Also, write with your speaker in mind, whether that's you or for somebody else. If it's somebody who's a little more formal or a CEO, you want to make sure that you're using words that they are comfortable with. And finally, use sound to your advantage. I say this with any type of writing, but read your script out loud to help you proof it, especially since the script is going to be heard instead of read. You want to make sure that it sounds good. So maybe even read it for other people. This is what you need to start a podcast. It's not very much. You can do it on a cell phone and a computer. You need a good mic. I'm using a mic right now to record myself. It is about $30 and it is USB plugged into my computer. It's pretty high tech, so they're not very expensive. And then you need some type of editing software. And I will talk to you about that on the next page. But there are some pretty easy to get programs. You can also use Adobe Premiere that's available to you through the school. And you need to ask yourself these questions before you start a podcast. Is someone already doing this? That doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it, but you do want to make sure you have your own angle on an idea. And how will it stand out in the market? What will be the hook? And what will it provide to people? People want to get something from their content. So, what will you be giving to people by providing this podcast? Here's the programs. Adobe Audition is what I mentioned before. It has very high quality sound editing, but it can be expensive if you're not in a school situation. So Audacity is another one that's used. People have mixed reviews about it, but it is free. So if you're looking to get started, that's one that you can use as well. I'm sure there are other free apps. Just be careful what you download onto your phone. So we are very briefly going to talk about audiovisual. And when I do, I talk about YouTube. It has a very interesting history. It was launched in February 14th, 2005. And according to the article that you read, it was initially concepted as a dating site where you would introduce yourself in short videos. People could say what they were looking for. But basically, it didn't take off that way. So eventually, the co founders, Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and Jawad Karim, opened it up to any video because what they found is that people were really excited about the opportunity to easily upload their video. In fact, one of the things that I do is use YouTube to put my videos on these, like for these class lectures. And that's because YouTube, it makes it so easy to play videos. Also on websites, I highly always recommend to people I'm helping build their websites that if they have video that they use YouTube and embed the YouTube code in their website because it's going to play so much better than other videos you would try to upload. So, what's the history, present, and future? Well, I talked a little bit about the history of YouTube already, but basically it was bought by Google in 2006 for 1.6 billion. Yes, that's only a year after its inception. In 2022, there's about 500 hours of video uploaded per minute. So, yeah, it's got a lot of content on it. There are things such as YouTube in 3D and YouTube 360. If you had a chance to use the VR, which I hope you did, you can go in and on the app YouTube 360 and experience YouTube videos in a true 360 environment. But I have links on the module page that this video is in, and you can look at those videos. And up in the corner, there's there's little arrows that you can use, and basically it's a 360 view. In fact, our college, our university has 360 cameras that you can rent out for a class purpose. So let me know if something like that is of interest to you. And finally, I want to talk about the future. What is AI going to do for videos in the future? AI capabilities are still pretty they're in their primary form right now, but they're going to grow and develop. So think about how AI will impact the making of videos, and also how will AR affect video making. AR is that augmented reality. So that experience of video in the outside world by holding up your phone to a QR code, or maybe in the future, even having glasses that add an extra component into your real world. So there's a lot of fun things and maybe even a little bit of scary things to think about. If you are thinking about making video, you do need to think about the way you are talking to your audience, and there's sort of a divide between the emotional appeal and the logical appeal. So what makes a watchable, shareable video? TikTok and YouTube Shorts have changed traditional structure. Here are some elements to consider. Are you going to go with more of an emotional appeal, or affective appeal is also what it's known as? And that includes things like empathy or fear, right? Are you trying to get people to do the right thing for themselves, like to stop smoking by using a fear appeal? Or are you just trying to get people to laugh and maybe remember your brand because they thought it was so funny? Are you going to use more of a logical appeal? Are you going to reason with people? Sometimes political ads do this, although I find that they really tend to rely on emotional appeals. Functionality has been a very popular and successful way to show off a product, show what it does for somebody. And testimonials are great too. Have people talking about how your company or your organization has worked out for them and have that testimony to back your product up. And that's all I've got for now. You guys are going to be making your own videos and learning more about audio visual podcasts and vidcasts through the feature assignment. So I'm excited to share more of what I love in this course, which is audiovisual media.